In this episode, we are talking about how one franchisee in one market can perform so much worse than another franchisee in another, and how environment changes everything. Coming up next. Actually, I want to say something else. What are you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, if you speak to a franchisee lawyer, they're going to blame the franchisor. If you ask the franchisor, they blame the franchisee. And of course, it's never an absolute. There's something always in the middle, and also depends on the quality of the system. So this is an important topic.
Man, if that's another Charles, like the Charles bingo card is getting great. Like, I bet you could go back to every webinar podcast you've ever done, and did you call it an important topic? Like, there's no way any of these topics.
It is. Well, why does one franchisee succeed and one fail?
All right. Well,
and then I'm left answering these questions from these lawyers when they're being ridiculous.
Oh yeah, I like when lawyers is worked up. That's another fun thing.
No one, no franchisee's ever at fault.
So let me bring up. We'll get to. It's going to be a roundabout way, but it's something that I've been thinking about. I had a podcast with the CEO of Banchan, and unpredicted, like the direction of our discussion went into this place because she's got a franchisee that does north of $4 million in Connecticut in a system where the AUV is somewhere in the twos. And I was like, would the $4 million franchisee expand? And the answer is no. They feel like they've tapped out. And it turned into like this false celebration of the highest performers when average performers are the highest probability of scale. And I'm gonna use this as a topic in two ways. I'm gonna say these words, I just want your feedback on it. Like, I thought about in an employer-employee setting, high performers burn out, low performers don't do jack shit. And the middle ends up being the most stable, and stability wins the day. And that's in an employee environment. Like, we over celebrate high performers when we should really be celebrating the middle, because the possibility of burnout is so much less in the middle, and the possibility of toxic is so much less in the middle. And so now if I think about a franchisee, like, it's not about high grossing volumes. It's about steady middle volumes that doesn't overwhelm you, that allows you to pick the right real estate, that allows you to scale at pace, and you're not like so locked into the revenues that come out of a unit that you don't have to get overly emotional with your highest performing unit. You just say, all right, I'm kicking out a little cash from this. Let me go do it again. And so that's where, like, when I get back to environment, like what is an environment, which I could talk about this forever. It's not necessarily the environment. Like, the environment that you actually want as a franchisor is you want as many franchisees performing close to the middle, your average unit volume, as possible, and probably a little bit before that, because you actually want to extract the high performance to get to true transparency on what a franchisee should be doing.
If we're going to examine this, right, traditionally in this example, high performer 4 million, what would you say is the variable or some of the variables between that 4 million versus the 2 million plus AUV?
We just talked about it with Gibbous. The way that I break it down is a third. Each of them carry equal weight: brand, real estate, and operations. And so each of those three elements carries weight. So take the $4 million Connecticut one. Good brand, and brand, there's extensions that, like, who's in the community, and in that brand, it's a Korean brand. So can a Korean brand have a community that is automatically accounting for sales? And so I have a whole nother theory on that on an international brand breaking into the States, off of $3 million in sales, $1.5 million of it is going to come from people that have a legacy fanatical following from the brand because of international. We've seen that with Paris Baguette. We've seen it with Bonchon. We've seen it with Jollibee. So anyway, so Connecticut, $1.3 million from brand, $1.3 million from the real estate. Like they absolutely selected the right location because they've been able to tap into Gen Pop. And a third, $1.3 million coming from the operator, but the operator is operating at max capacity. And so the risk there is that burns out a little bit. That $1.3 million could go down. Like I think there's risk there that goes down to, call it 700,000, which then means eventually this settles in at 3.3, which is still outproducing average, which leaves the franchisee still burnt out, and changes their perception of what's falling to the bottom line.
So you're attributing most of it to franchisee operator?
No, a third. I'm saying for there in that sense,
I
a third is still to the operator, but
right.
because when you're performing at such a high level, eventually you can't perform at that high level. Take Michael Jordan. Eventually, he got to a place where he could not perform. He had the brand, he had the real estate. He could no longer perform at a high level because his body had burned out, because age does that to you. Therefore, he was no longer the highest performer, right? In the league. Like that's how it works.
Well, I think here, though, the key takeaway is your differentiator is the franchisee operator outperforming. But also you're talking about a stable brand that on your 3-part paradigm there, you have a good brand. It produces unit economically, and the outperformance is the franchisee operator. But I would say too, an underperforming franchisee could be more burnt out than a high performing franchisee, right? They don't know what they're doing wrong.
I don't think they're burnt out. I don't think a low performer can't burn out. Because if they looked in the mirror, but if they look in the mirror, they're not doing it. Like no low performers do.
No, they don't look in the mirror. They
totally.
they blame the franchisor, and they call a franchisee attorney.
But what's that called?
I don't know what it's called.
They're not burnt out. They're toxic.
Yeah, but they don't know that. They think they're burnt out.
Of course, they don't think it.
Right. So, but you gave an example of a successful brand. How do you differentiate, right, between, so you have brand, real estate or territory, and franchisee performance? In a situation that's not so clear cut, and you don't have a ton of validation in the system, right, more on the emerging end, how do you know the truth between, is it a franchisee operator or is it more on the brand side, or potentially?
I think it's a third still. So let's take a garage business that does 300,000.
Okay.
100 grand is for, simply by being present, people need their garage fixed. That's $100,000 worth of sales. So that's just the brand. The territory, if you're in a place that has garages, there's 100 grand. And then the operator, are they building the market? There's 100 grand. So now let's take that. That's a good performing unit in a garage space at 300. Let's say the operator refuses to get out to the community, and now it's doing 200 because we did select the territory right. There's enough garages, and people are naturally calling, but the operator just not engaged, and so now it's doing 200. If 300 is the benchmark, that franchisee is very, very, very frustrated. And then as we start swinging it up, I'm in the community, I'm spending ads, I got the territory right. And here, let's just say the variable ends up being a swing of another $100,000, then the operator can affect another $33,000. So now we're at 333. We're performing above average. Maybe the other two levers can't go. Is it possible to get this data? No. Like that's the reality. But if you're measuring it, like you're trying to understand the difference between failing underperforming unit and above, and you're saying like the environment that we're trying to go for is right down the middle, so expectations are always met, and it's scalable, then that's how I would look at it.
I like the framework. Where does a franchisor look itself in the mirror and say, this franchisee is not performing, but also we may not have fulfilled our obligations in coaching, educating, supporting, and elevating them? Like, how do you balance that?
Well, that's the brand. So the brand side, there's $100,000 in that scenario that falls off. So it could fall off of the bottom. How do you evaluate that as a franchisor?
Yeah.
Well, you got to test it. You got to test out the theory. If you're like, look, we didn't onboard them as best as we can, then it's like, okay, how do we correct this? I'm going to get out in the marketplace. We're going to spend the next few weeks with them. We're going to retrain them, make sure their team is in line with what we're doing. We're going to actually do an ad buy in the marketplace, knowing that we make money off of gross sales. So it's going to be a reinvestment in our business, but we're going to go ahead and fund some of that marketing for this franchisee to help lift them up. And then in a very extreme scenario, when that happens, and I've seen this recently with a client, there might be an offer to buy back the unit. Just say like, look, it's not like there's too much baggage here. Let's give you a peaceful landing, and we'll take it over corporately and start operating it. Like there are solves on it, but the franchisor has to recognize what that gap is. And if they're like, look, we nailed the territory or we nailed the real estate, we feel okay about the franchisee, but we don't feel like we've given them the other pieces to be successful from brand and franchise, then that probably leads them down that pathway of making a decision of how they want to make it right.
Yeah, and as we're preparing for Frank Camp, and we spoke with the Jorge, CEO of Gibbous, we've also spoken to other sponsors where they provide data and dashboards for franchisors. The tools are there, right? And I do like the framework, right? So company like Gibbous, you're looking at your territory mapping, you're looking at your demographics. There's other companies out there, you're pulling in the franchisee data on the unit economics. So all those tools are there. And then to your point, how do you evaluate, is your brand holding water? Well, it's comparing to the other franchisees, right? Where are those baselines going? And I think that becomes important foundation. Nick, assuming you're getting brand right, you're getting real estate right, you have the right unit economics, don't all these things filter into that messaging and story? The one we're going to be talking about at Frank Camp in terms of franchise sales and positioning for AI?
Sure, but very few brands build it into those three buckets of brand, real estate, and operations in the way that they're positioning their story. Like they lean into AUVs, but they don't break down how they get to that AUV. They might champion an AUV where new units are performing less. They might champion a cost to get in where it's actually costing more. Like the reality is, I don't think a lot of franchisors actually know how to tell their story. They default to buzzwords because of vendors or whatever else. They don't think through like, what is the true problem that we're solving for franchise buyers? And they're left saying, well, blame marketing, blame something else other than looking in the mirror and saying, we just didn't tell the story the right way. And so part of what we're trying to do at Frank Camp is give the tools to unpack the story and distribute it. And distribution in Frank Camp's world is going to be, how do we make sure that when you're talking to your girlfriend AI late at night, she's saying, hey, buy that franchise?
I'm going to ask you on those 3 points for everyone watching this, some advice for you to give them, Nick, on those 3 components, right? What should you be focused on in your story, on your brand, on your territory or location, and on your performers, right? Your franchisees. And guys, if you missed out on Frank Camp, which is coming up June 1 to 3 in New Jersey, next event will be in Miami, and definitely be a part of it. We're going to be doing some really good things. But on these 3 parts, Nick, what are some of the things someone should be evaluating? Or for each one, give a question the franchisor needs to be answering somewhere in the sales cycle on their website, somewhere to start getting through in terms of AI and building that narrative.
Put that screen back up.
Hold on. Let me, you give me a very difficult task here. Hold on. Takes me a while. Okay, got it.
Here's what I love about this site. This is the framework of franchise. No, go up. Don't scroll. Don't go to your, like the Charles scrolling can stop on this.
All right.
So what's the problem that we're solving? The problem that we're solving, what we're speaking to here is we're saying like, look, if you're tired of the PowerPoint conferences and you want something that's engaging, a boot camp is engaging, and it takes people to get through a boot camp. The only way a boot camp is successful is if you're positioned with the people that can actually impact it. So that's what we're saying right off the bat. Well, how are we going to do that? We're going to help you create. We're going to talk about distribution, lifting up your brand story to make sure that it is positioned in a world of AI. Well, now we're actually explaining what we're going to do after we've told you the problem that we're going to solve. You like going to franchise conferences, but you just feel burnt out by them. Here we're already changing it. Here's how we're going to change it. And where are we doing it? We're doing it in Red Bank. You can see the beautiful ocean on the back end. So we're actually showing the place that it's going to get done. The point I'm saying by reading these 3 lines is a franchisor needs to have these same 3 lines and the problem that they solve for a franchisee. And this is the model. I promise you, when you say support, you better have an answer of what support actually means. Like, what is the problem that you're solving in every category of franchise and operations and real estate or territory in the example that we just gave, so that these 3 lines, a franchisor needs to have them. So if I'm guiding a franchisor, look at how we've positioned FranCamp. This is how you need to think about yours. And if we pull up a franchisor website, they may have line 1, but it usually says like, live your best life, buy my franchise, or la-di-da-di, buy this franchise. And that's the miss. We're not telling a franchise buyer what problem we're solving, and we're not putting them in a day in the life of what it's going to feel like when we solve that problem. If you go and look at TikTok shop videos, it's always a human being like, this shirt will transform your life. Look what it does to me. I'm 6'2", 190 pounds. Look at what it is. And so now what are they doing? They're showing the product that is going to transform your life. They're explaining that they believe that it does transform lives. They're giving you a pathway to go buying this shirt because it's the perfect shirt and it transforms your life and makes you feel better about yourself. And they have the 3 lines. Like the 3 lines is nothing new. It's just that most brands don't know how to articulate those 3 lines, which is where when it's like, sell me your brand, they really struggle to do so.
Yeah, and it comes off generic, right? The brand just becomes another industry category. So it seems like I just saw Melissa. She was getting everything ready with the sponsors.
I love when you start talking about people that nobody has any idea who you're saying. You're like, I just saw this person. They're in the background.
No, well, I mean, for
nobody knows who Melissa is.
All right. So for FranCamp, hotel conference is set up. We have the restaurant set up. Melissa is getting ready for a cocktail hour.
You already set up the restaurant?
Yeah, no, she's getting ready for a cocktail hour here. So everyone is going to be joining us at FranCamp. When you're here in New Jersey, if you need anything, reach out to us. And if you missed out on FranCamp New Jersey, definitely sign up for FranCamp Miami, which is almost, I guess, 3/4 filled.
Yeah, Miami's going well. We're unleashing the unicorn story. And we just got another speaker book today of a emerging brand that is skyrocketing its growth right now. So I just confirmed that today. Very excited about that. If anybody is watching this and you're going to see this at FranCamp, let me be very clear. Charles and I really do love each other. So you're going to see like behaviors that are like, what is wrong with these two? But I promise you, it is all love.
It's going to be good. Everyone, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for joining us. See ya.